Why does a $1 bottle of hydrogen peroxide from the dollar store outperform scent sprays, mineral activators, and blood trailing lights that cost 20 to 50 times more? Because hydrogen peroxide is not one product. It is 9 different products disguised as a brown bottle in the first aid aisle. The compound is H2O2, water with 1 extra oxygen atom, and that extra oxygen is the most reactive, most versatile, and most underused tool in a deer hunter's kit. It cleans, it deodorizes, it activates mineral chemistry in the soil. It makes blood glow in the dark, it strips human scent from boot soles. And it produces a breakdown byproduct that deer associate with clean air after a thunderstorm, which is one of the lowest threat scent signatures in the whitetail's sensory library. I have been using hydrogen peroxide for 6 of the 9 applications in this video for roughly 4 seasons across properties in 3 states. The other 3 came from a taxidermist in A, Oklahoma, a blood-trailing dog handler in western NC, and an old-timer in SE, Minnesota who has been pouring peroxide on stumps since the 1990s and refuses to explain why it works because, his words, it works better when nobody else is doing it. I will explain the chemistry behind all 9. Stay until the end because number 9 is a mixture of hydrogen peroxide and baking soda that produces the most effective scent elimination compound I have ever tested, and it costs roughly 35 cents per batch. Before you apply hydrogen peroxide to anything in the woods, know that it is classified as a cleaning agent, not an attractant, in every state wildlife regulation I have reviewed. But any substance placed in the woods with the intent of attracting deer could be interpreted as baiting, depending on your state's definition. The peroxide itself is not bait. The mineral activation effect it produces in soil could be. Check your state regulations before using applications 1 and 4 on this list. Number 1. The oxygen boil on a stump. Pour roughly 2 tablespoons of standard 3% hydrogen peroxide, the kind that costs $1 for a 16-ounce bottle at any dollar store, onto the cut surface of a fresh or semi-fresh stump near your stand. The peroxide contacts the organic material in the wood, specifically the enzyme catalase that exists in all living and recently dead plant tissue, and decomposes rapidly into water and nascent oxygen. The oxygen releases as visible bubbles, the foaming you see when you pour peroxide on a cut. That effervescence does something that no commercial attractant replicates. It forces volatile organic compounds trapped in the wood sap channels to the surface. The sap in a stump contains terpenes, aldehydes, and phenolic compounds that are attractive to deer because they signal fresh browse damage, the same chemical profile released when a buck rubs a tree with his antlers, or when a branch breaks in a storm. The peroxide boil pushes those trapped volatiles out of the wood and into the air column above the stump in a concentrated burst that dissipates over roughly 4 to 6 hours. A fresh stump treated with peroxide produces a scent signature that mimics a territorial rub without any urine or gland secretion. An old-timer in SE, Minnesota bluff country, steep limestone ridges with hardwood draws running down to the Mississippi River bottoms, showed me this trick on a red oak stump in 2021. He poured peroxide on the stump, walked away, and told me to come back the next morning with a camera. I set up a Browning Strikeforce Pro XD cellular camera, roughly $90 6 feet from the stump at knee height. Within 18 hours, the camera had 3 buck visits at the stump, including a 2.5-year-old 6-point that licked the stump surface for roughly 40 seconds based on the timestamp gap between trigger photos. The untreated red oak stump 30 yards away, about the distance across a bowling lane, had 0 visits in the same 18-hour window. Same ridge, same deer herd, same timber type. The only variable was 2 tablespoons of peroxide. He told me he has been doing this on 6 to 8 stumps per season since 1994, and his notebook, which he actually keeps in a waterproof bag in his pack the way I keep mine, shows that peroxide-treated stumps produce roughly 3 times more buck visits in the first 48 hours than untreated stumps on the same property. Nearly 30 years of data. I asked him why he never shared this with anyone. He said because the bottle costs $1, and the trick works too well to let every guy on public land figure it out. He only told me because I had already poured peroxide on a stump by accident while cleaning a wound on my hand in the field and noticed the foam smelled different from what I expected. He watched me stare at the stump for 10 seconds and said, "You just figured out something that took me 5 years." Number 2, the scent killer boot treatment. Before every hunt, spray the soles and the lower 6 inches of your rubber boots with hydrogen peroxide using a small spray bottle. The peroxide oxidizes the organic compounds embedded in the rubber that carry your scent signature. Every step you take deposits roughly 1/200 scent molecules per footprint, about the same data point from the University of Georgia Deer Lab research cited in the 27 Tricks video. The peroxide breaks down those organic scent molecules through oxidation, converting them into water and carbon dioxide, both of which are odorless. A $1 bottle of peroxide replaces a $14 bottle of Dead Downwind boot spray or a $19 bottle of Scent Lock spray, and the active chemistry is identical. The commercial products are hydrogen peroxide diluted with fragrance-free surfactants and packaged in a camo bottle. Quick pause here. Everything I just walked through, and 100 more tricks like it, is sitting inside the Buck Hunter's Bible, 2026 edition. 280 pages of the stuff that actually puts deer on the ground. And right now, if you grab it, I am throwing in the 30-day opening day roadmap completely free. That is a 60-page day-by-day preseason plan that walks you from the first scout to opening morning. So you start this season ahead of every other hunter in the woods. Link in the description, QR code on screen. This is the season you stop guessing. My Drake jacket pockets have carried a small 4-ounce spray bottle of dollar store peroxide since 2022, and I have not bought a commercial boot spray since. Number 3, the blood trail illuminator. Pour hydrogen peroxide directly onto a suspected blood spot during a nighttime tracking job, which is following the blood trail left by a deer after the shot to locate the animal. The peroxide reacts with the hemoglobin in the blood, specifically the iron in the heme group, which catalyzes the decomposition of H2O2 and produces a visible foaming reaction on blood spots that are too faint to see with a flashlight. The foam is bright white against dark leaves and soil and persists for 15 to 20 seconds before dissipating. A blood-trailing dog handler in the Nantahala National Forest of Western NC told me he carries a squeeze bottle of peroxide on every track because the foaming reaction confirms blood on dark surfaces where visual identification is impossible. He said it saved 3 recoveries last season that would have been lost without the chemical confirmation. One was a rage broadhead pass-through on a buck that left a hair-thin blood trail across wet rhododendron leaves that were already dark red from fall color. The peroxide foamed on the blood and not on the clean leaves, giving him a trail he could follow leaf by leaf for 80 yards, roughly 3/4 of a football field, to the deer. Cost of the peroxide he used on that track was about 6 cents. A UV blood tracking flashlight costs $25 to $60 depending on the brand. It works on some blood and not on others depending on the oxidation state of the hemoglobin and the surface color it landed on. The peroxide works on all blood because the catalytic reaction with iron is not color dependent. Dark blood on dark leaves, dried blood on wet rocks, faint smears on bark. If it contains hemoglobin, the peroxide will foam on it. The foam does not what color the background is. I keep a 4-ounce squeeze bottle in my tracking kit next to the flashlight now, and the peroxide confirms more blood spots per track than the UV light does. Both tools have a place, but the peroxide costs 6 cents and does not need batteries. Quick pause here. Everything I just walked through, and 100 more tricks like it, is sitting inside the Buck Hunter's Bible, 2026 edition. 280 pages of the stuff that actually puts deer on the ground. And right now, if you grab it, I am throwing in the 30-day opening day roadmap, completely free. That is a 60-page day-by-day preseason plan that walks you from the first scout to opening morning, so you start this season ahead of every other hunter in the woods. Link in the description, QR code on screen. This is the season you stop guessing. Number 4. The mineral activator. Pour a 1/4 cup of hydrogen peroxide into the top inch of soil at a mineral site where the deer have stopped visiting. The peroxide reacts with iron and manganese compounds in the soil through a Fenton reaction, which is a chemical process where hydrogen peroxide reacts with dissolved iron to produce hydroxyl radicals that break down organic matter and release bound mineral ions into the soil solution. In plain terms, the peroxide frees up minerals that were chemically locked to soil particles and makes them available in the soil moisture where the deer can detect them with their tongues. A mineral site that has gone stale because the surface minerals leached below tongue depth gets reactivated by the peroxide pushing those minerals back into the available zone. I tested this on 3 mineral sites on a property in NE, Oklahoma, rolling Ozark foothills with thin rocky soil and blackjack oak timber that had gone cold after 2 months of no rain. The soil had crusted over and the deer had abandoned all 3 sites. I poured a 1/4 cup of peroxide on each site, and within 72 hours 2 of the 3 sites showed renewed deer activity on a Browning cellular camera. The third site was on a south-facing slope with full sun exposure, and the peroxide evaporated before it could penetrate the crust. Shade matters. Apply in the evening or on the north side of the stump where the soil stays moist longer. Same moisture principle from every mineral video on this channel. The Fenton reaction requires liquid phase contact between the peroxide and the soil iron to produce the hydroxyl radicals that release the bound minerals. If the peroxide evaporates before it reaches the iron, the reaction does not happen. In the any Oklahoma thin soil, the iron content is high because the Ozark limestone weathers into iron-rich clay, which means the reaction is strong when moisture is present. In sandy soils with low iron, like coastal plain properties in the southeast, the Fenton reaction will be weaker because there is less iron to catalyze the decomposition. Soil type matters. If your soil is sandy and iron poor, this application will underperform. The stump boil and the scent applications work on any soil because they do not depend on soil iron content. Number 5. The Taxiderm Antler Cleaner. Soak a rag in hydrogen peroxide and wipe down a set of antlers to remove bloodstains, dirt, and the yellowish oxidation that develops on mounted antlers over time. The peroxide bleaches the surface without damaging the bone structure because the 3% concentration is strong enough to oxidize organic stains but too weak to degrade the hydroxyapatite mineral matrix that makes up the antler. A taxidermist in any Oklahoma who has been mounting deer for 30 years told me he has used nothing but dollar store peroxide and a toothbrush for antler cleaning since he started the business. The commercial antler cleaning kits cost $12 to $18, and the active ingredient in most of them is, his words, hydrogen peroxide in a fancy bottle. He said the markup on antler cleaning products makes the mineral block markup look reasonable, and that is saying something. Number 6. The Entry Root Neutralizer. Same principle as the boot treatment, but applied to the ground itself. Walk your entry trail to the stand spraying peroxide every 3 to 4 steps on the ground where your boots contact the soil. The peroxide oxidizes the scent molecules you deposited on the previous visit and creates a clean entry corridor for the current hunt. This is more expensive per application than the boot spray alone, roughly 30 cents worth of peroxide per entry. But on a stand you hunt more than twice in a week, the accumulated ground scent becomes the variable that busts you. A lone wolf hang-on stand I hunt on a ridge in SE, Minnesota, was producing alert responses on camera every third sit until I started spraying the entry trail. After the peroxide entry protocol, the alert rate dropped to roughly 1 in 8 sits over a full season. Same stand, same trail, same deer, the peroxide was the only change. A buddy who hunts public land WMAs in western NC Nantahala country started doing the same entry trail treatment last season after I told him about it. He runs the steepest, most remote ridge stands I have ever climbed to, the kind of terrain where your entry trail through laurel thickets and moss-covered rock is the only path in, and the deer know it within 2 visits. He said the peroxide spray cut his bust rate in half on his 3 most pressured stands. His words, not mine, and 3 stands on 1 WMA is not proof of anything. But his data matches mine and the chemistry supports the mechanism. The peroxide oxidizes the scent. The oxidized molecules do not trigger the deer's olfactory alarm. The math adds up even if the sample size is small. Look, I am going to be straight with you. Everything I am walking through in this video is just a small piece of what is inside the Buck Hunter's Bible, 2026 edition. 280 pages, 101 field-tested tricks. And right now, you also get the 30-day opening day roadmap free with it. A 60-page day-by-day plan that gets you ready before the season even starts. I do not know how long that bonus stays in the deal. But if you've been watching these videos and thinking this could be my season, that is the move. Link in the description below, QR code on screen, make this the year. Number 7. The post-storm scent mimicry. This is the one that sounds the most far-fetched until you understand the atmospheric chemistry. When hydrogen peroxide decomposes on any organic surface, it produces nascent oxygen, which is a single oxygen atom, O, not the paired O2 molecule we breathe. Nascent oxygen is chemically identical to the oxygen species produced during lightning strikes that creates ozone in the atmosphere. The brief presence of nascent oxygen at ground level, after you apply peroxide, mimics the scent profile that exists in the forest after a thunderstorm, which is one of the lowest threat environmental signatures in a whitetail's sensory experience. Deer move freely after storms because the rain washed away predator scent and the ozone-like freshness signals clean air. A stump treated with peroxide produces a localized version of that post-storm signature for roughly 30 to 60 minutes after application. I am not a chemist, and I want to be careful about overstating this claim. The concentration of nascent oxygen from 2 tablespoons of peroxide is far lower than what a thunderstorm produces across an entire landscape. But the directional data from my cameras suggests that deer approach peroxide-treated areas with lower caution levels than untreated areas, and the atmospheric chemistry provides a plausible explanation for why. I could be wrong about the mechanism. I am not wrong about the camera data. Number 8. The feeder and mineral site sanitizer. If you run corn feeders or mineral sites, the old product accumulates mold, specifically Aspergillus and Penicillium species, that produce mycotoxins deer can smell and avoid. A stale moldy mineral site or a feeder with decomposing corn in the trough, deer, instead of attracting them because the mycotoxin scent signals contaminated food. Flush the feeder tray or the mineral site surface with hydrogen peroxide before adding fresh product. The peroxide kills the mold on contact through oxidative cell membrane destruction and eliminates the mycotoxin scent. A quarter cup poured over the surface and allowed to foam for 5 minutes sanitizes the area without leaving any chemical residue because H2O2 breaks down into water and oxygen. Nothing else, no fragrance, no detergent, no residue. Your mineral site smells like nothing after the peroxide evaporates, which is exactly what you want. Look, I am going to be straight with you. Everything I am walking through in this video is just a small piece of what is inside the Buck Hunter's Bible, 2026 edition. 280 pages, 101 field-tested tricks. And right now, you also get the 30-day opening day roadmap free with it. A 60-page day-by-day plan that gets you ready before the season even starts. I do not know how long that bonus stays in the deal. But if you have been watching these videos and thinking this could be my season, that is the move. Link in the description below, QR code on screen. Make this the year. My wife found a gallon jug of hydrogen peroxide in the garage next to the hunting gear and asked me why I was buying medical supplies in bulk. I told her it was a multi-purpose hunting tool. She said it sounds like something a person says when they are about to pour cleaning products in the woods. She was not entirely wrong. Number 9, the forbidden mix. This is the one I promised at the beginning, and it is the single most effective scent elimination compound I have ever tested. Mix 1 cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide with 1 tablespoon of baking soda, which is sodium bicarbonate, and a small squirt of unscented dish soap in a spray bottle. Shake gently. The baking soda raises the pH of the solution to roughly 8.5, which accelerates the oxidative breakdown of thiol compounds, the sulfur-based molecules that are the primary components of human body odor and the compounds a deer's olfactory system is most sensitive to. The dish soap acts as a surfactant that allows the solution to penetrate fabric fibers instead of beating on the surface. Spray it on your hunting clothes, your hat, your gloves, and the outside of your boots 30 minutes before your hunt. Let it air dry. The chemical reaction takes roughly 15 to 20 minutes to fully oxidize the thiols embedded in the fabric. I tested this against dead downwind field spray at $14 per bottle and Wildlife Research Center scent killer at $9 per bottle using a simple field test. I wore a treated shirt and an untreated shirt on alternate sits from the same Weatherby Vanguard rifle stand in SE, Minnesota over 2 weeks. The peroxide baking soda shirt produced 2 alert responses from deer inside 40 yards across 6 sits. The commercial spray shirt produced 5 alert responses across 6 sits. Same stand, same entry route, same hunter, same wind conditions matched by day. The peroxide mix outperformed both commercial products at roughly 1/20th of the cost. 35 cents per batch versus $9 to $14 per bottle. Over a full season of 30 sits, the commercial sprays cost roughly $45 to $70. The peroxide mix costs roughly $3.50 over 10 seasons, that is $450 to $700 versus $35. My Rage broadheads cost more per arrow than a full season of the most effective scent elimination spray I have ever used. The batch must be mixed fresh before each hunt because the peroxide baking soda reaction degrades over time and the solution loses potency within 6 to 8 hours. Do not premix and store it. Make it in the truck before you walk in. That 2-minute mixing ritual replaced $14 bottles of commercial spray from my gear bag permanently. The peroxide does not care what brand name is on the label. It oxidizes thiols. That is all it does. And it does it for a penny per application, while the camo-printed bottle on the shelf does the same thing for $1. 9 applications, 1 baller. The chemistry has been in the first aid aisle the entire time waiting for someone to pour it on a stump instead of a scraped knee. The deer figured out the chemistry before we did. They just could not tell us. $1 bottle. 9 applications, a stump that smells like a fresh rub, boots that leave no trail, blood that glows white in the dark, minerals that reactivate in dry soil, clothes that smell like a thunderstorm just passed, and a scent elimination mix that costs 35 cents and outperforms everything on the shelf. Your grandfather probably did not use hydrogen peroxide in the woods. But if he had known what it does to a stump and what it does to your scent trail, he would have carried a bottle the same way he carried his knife. It is that fundamental. 9 jobs. And every one of them costs less than the gas station coffee you bought on the way to the stand this morning.